Welcome to the CEN show, where you can hear the voice of the community. The CommunityEducationNetwork.com is a platform to aid the effort of self and collective improvement. In your investigative or spare time, visit the website to participate in the forum. We want to hear your thoughts and to engage in dialogue. I am your host, Rahh Maskani. Tonight's topic is Black male and female relationships. I would like to introduce our guest and CEN member, Professor Rahh. Professor Rahh is a professor emeritus of the Black Studies Department of Cal State Long Beach. He's a community activist and a personal consultant and an excellent example of a human being. Professor Rahh, Hujambo, and how are you doing this evening?
Good.
Okay, would you like to tell us more about yourself?
Well, I think, first of all, I want to say Asante Sana, which is many thanks to Brother Rahh
Maskani.
Yeah, Rahh Maskani for his introduction and for providing this platform on Monday. On Mondays at 6. Wednesdays at 6. So that we can have a fruitful discussion about the various issues that affect Black people and Black life in general, and all the not only the challenges and the issues, but also try to come up with suggested solutions and debate those solutions, and you can get ideas from those that are listening, as well as those that are facilitating the discussion. So I deeply appreciate that. For those that may not know, my name is Professor Rahh. I was a professor at Cal State Long Beach, Black Studies for 34 years. I retired in 2004. I started in 1970. I was the first chair of the reconstituted Black Studies Department. And we developed a certificate minor program as well as a degree program during my tenure there as a BA in Black Studies. And I taught many classes, social science, mostly in the social science area of psychology was my, Black psychology was my number one course, as well as, the Black child development, as well as various forms of courses, the Black community, third world, just everything in the social science, ethnic studies, introduction to Black studies, all of those courses. And so it was one beautiful experience, and I treasure it. The department is no longer called Black Studies, it's called Africana Studies now. And Dr. Maulana Karenga, who's one of my best friends, is the chair there now. Then second, I was also served on the Compton City Council from 1999 to 2001. And I also served on the Compton College Board of Trustees from 1995 to 1999. And I served on the Compton Unified School District Board of Trustees from 1991 to 1995. All of those were elected offices. And so it was just a beautiful experience. Serving in those capacities, you learn a lot about the issues that we face in education, as well as in the various struggles that we have as an African people. Today, I'm going to discuss Black male-female relationships because that's a critical topic. It was always one of the most popular classes in most Black studies programs. Whenever you discuss Black male-female relationships, those are generally the biggest classes, because it's a deep concern for many of the Black people in trying to learn about the issues that we face with regards to our human relationships toward each other and social relationships toward each other. Most people like to look at Black male-female relationships in terms of, male-female dating or intimate relationships or evolving into family relationships from marriage or any other forms of arrangements, which is true. I mean, that's where most studies, when most people hear Black male-female relationships, that's what they focus on. But Black male-female relationship also entails female to female, siblings like sister to brother, sister to uncle, sister to grandpa. It also entails brother to brother and brother to sister and brother to auntie and brother to mama. And those are male-female relationships. So sometimes a lot of our studies is just about the dating and the intimate involvement and the challenges of that. But it emerges out of a social context, a context by which a lot of us do not apply a social science approach, and we're not taught and trained the science of mating and the science of social science aspects of relationships. Very few of us educate our children to relationships. I mean, we do our education of beware of this and beware of that, but at the same time, we do not really go into the statistical or the scientific aspects of mating or the scientific aspects and social science of relationships. And so therefore, as a part of our upcoming, most of us learn from the people we're dating or learn from our peers or learn from mass media, and we must look at those influences, of course, but at the same time, when you're looking at a lot of the studies and the research from an Afrocentric perspective and scholars that have written books on it and individuals that have studied, they're not on television and they're not on, sometimes, they may be on a talk show here and there, but for the most part, they are generally on, something you have to research and get into books and get into folklore or get into organizations or cultural programs that have discussion circles or restorative justice type of perspectives, or just at the same time learning content in those discussions. Sometimes sororities and fraternities may do that. We don't know, but we do know that many of our historical, what they would call mystery systems, or what they call sacred societies and secret societies that many Europeans couldn't figure out. They did discuss a lot of these issues, and they also put them in motion. But we look at male-female relationships in the context of our social environment in America, but sometimes you have to go deeper than that and go into our historical forms of relationships before we became contaminated with white oppression and white exploitation and white imposition of their culture on us. And sometimes when your biological and psychological nature is different from the person that is imposing theirs on you, and you digest it, or you, for whatever reason, see yourself in the terms of their reality or their imposition or their perspective of culture, sometimes it creates a natural conflict. In other words, if you look at yourself, a Black man, and look at himself based on a white concept of a relationship, and he bases relationship on what he gets from Europeans, sometimes it creates a natural challenge. And the same thing for the female. We have the same value. We accept their values of what a relationship is, but it doesn't fit our condition, it doesn't fit our need, and it doesn't fit our biochemical aspects of it. And that also can contribute to a lot of issues. Now, So we look at from a standpoint of education, as an education, as Raskani was saying, it's Roski. How pronounce it? Rush. Okay. I don't know why I have problems with
Well,
that.
it's Ross Aki. You could just, it's a silent
Rasaki
H. Ross Aki.
Maskani. Rasaki Maskani.
Yes, sir.
Right?
Yes,
Okay.
sir.
And so as he was saying, some of his most enjoyable classes was the Black Studies because it was about his culture and it was about his life, and he can relate. This is why standard tests are so bad for Black people. It doesn't fit our nature, our life, our true experiences. And sometimes our male-female relationships are not based upon the reality of us as Black people. When you say Black male-female relationship, are you basing it from a Black experience, or are you just saying I'm a Black person in a relationship based upon a Eurocentric or Caucasian aspect of their social dynamics influence on you? In other words, the image of a Black woman who thinks that she got to look like a white woman, or lighten up, or get various forms of yellow hair or blonde hair or pink hair or blue hair or something like that, or put on all kind of cream to try to lighten herself up if she's dark pigmented, or at the same time get fingernails so long she look like a Bangdale tiger, and then or get various things which don't equip her to deal with her perspective. But going back to our history, so we go back to the primary aspects of Black people, female relationships. The first functional families, most scholars, from John G. Jackson to John Henry Clark to Dr. Joseph Ben Yakanan, as well as Albert Churchward, Signs and Symbols of Premortal Man. We talking about our primary period of discovery. We discovered the aspect of male-female relationship through trial and error, and through the standpoint of coming up under a matriarchal system, meaning women ruling. And at the same time, you have to see the growth from just encounterships, a male and a female, and as they multiplied, they became a family, and it was mating. It wasn't matrimony at that time, it was mating. And a lot of the mating was not based upon longevity. It was based upon people just having sex and then moving on. And it's only through their cultural apparatus that long-term mating became a necessity for the growth and development of the community. In other words, as an African people, our whole goal of getting together and being together was the purpose of developing political, economical, social, and educational power and empowerment. That was the purpose of us mating and us building families and building communities. And you see that in the book Introduction to African Civilization by John G. Jackson, with the foreword by John Henry Clark, when he talks about the Black woman being one of the first architects by building the thatch hut. See, when you have children, one of the natures of females is maturity and stability. Now, it's a very few women that does not want security and stability to raise a family. They want to know where they're going to be, and they want to know if it's going to be stable from that standpoint. And so we developed that whole concept of mating. The European was still hitting this woman in the head at the water and dragging her in caves when we were developing families and institutions. Way before religion came in with their forms of rituals and requirements to marry within the religion and to mate within the religion, to grow the religion. We did it to grow civilization. There's a big difference when you're trying to develop a family or an institution called a family, And that's what led from us going from what they would call clans and into great civilizations in ancient Africa. And then when they got from instinct in the primary period, where we did things as an era of discovery and we did things based on instinct, as we got more productive, went from food gatherers to food producers, our whole relationships with each other changed because we had prosperity. Instead of spending all our mind and thought and energy on getting food and finding shelter and finding warmth and things of this nature, we began to think and we began to question the universe and question nature. And we began to name things and we began to think about things and we began to employ philosophies and thoughts. And that's why you see what is called the Piper's Anni, or what you would call the Book of the Dead, or the coffin text, what you would call the hieroglyphics written in what you call pyramids, which were really mausoleums for death, for royalty and people that they thought were gods, because their gods walked around on earth. They deified people based on their knowledge and contribution to civilization, both male and female. And these relationships were based upon your productivity and your contribution to civilization, even if it's just having children, but being within the scope of that civilization and that development. And that's why you have, they call Ethiopia and Egypt, which is in Africa. And Egypt is North Africa. That's why they have such great civilization on the Niletic River, and as well as in southern parts of Africa and all over the continent. Civilizations were growing because of a high rate of reproductivity, but the structure of the matriarchal system and learning that environment, watching the animal, that the whole continent of Africa is an educational as well as resourceful place where you see nature is your teacher. You didn't have colleges, you didn't have public schools. You learned by your interaction with nature. And that's how you formed your first relationship. In a book called Black Truth with Asar Jabbar, who was Jerry Palmer, he wrote about how we even developed languages mimicking the sounds that we heard in Africa. And that's where the S came from, the A came from, the B came from, all of this way before European civilizations were started. I just want to set a basis for male-female relationship today. I just want to let you know that prior to the European getting involved, and this is what Dr. LaFrancis Rhodes was talking about, and she wrote an article in her book, The Dialect of Black Male-Female Relationships, whereas we deal with criticism versus creativity. And in other words, no matter what is causing the problem, the system have us blaming each other, criticizing each other, saying, well, it's men problem, no, it's the woman problem. And to the point that we don't say, okay, let's come up with some creative ideas how to get around those problems no matter what. And because the goal is to develop a relationship that lead to the manifestation of our future and our continuation and liberation movement toward regaining our ability to be ourselves and to express ourselves in our own cultural apparatus. In other words, you don't have to talk white, act white. You can be your African self, or you can be based upon your Black experience. And the Black experience is different from the African experience. African experience, you're dealing with ethnicity. And in the Black experience, you're dealing with a racial dynamic and developing an identity from that racial enclosure. That's why African music, Jamaican music, Brazilian Black music, all are different from soul music in the Black experience and liberation movement and art movement. But anyway, so getting to male-female relationships, as I was saying, one of the most important decisions most of us will ever make as individuals is being involved with another individual for an intimate standpoint, male, female, at one time, but now it's, it's been changed a lot, marriage and partnership has changed, relationships have changed, but let's just deal with the male and female. That's going to be a very serious decision by both of you that's involved. And it takes an enormous amount of knowledge and wisdom when you make that decision. But if you just make it on just emotional or just an attractive or just a sexual encountership, then that's not really a foundation. You can start that way, but you still got to build a foundation of friendship, structure, and expectations and principles of mating, principles of relationships. Principles of communications, principles of how we're going to be together. And at the same time, have benchmarks to measure that progress to a certain degree, because you don't want to spend your life waiting for somebody to change. And you're not going to change people. You can get involved with somebody, you say, well, he's a good person, he's a great lover, or she's a great lover. I'm going to change your mind. It's like a man trying to change a woman who likes men and just like to go out, or a woman who's trying to change a man who likes to just hang out with his partners and do his thing. And well, I'm gonna make him change. And then you spend 10 years and he hasn't changed. And you say, well, that's 10 years I wasted because you didn't develop the principles of measuring the progress of the relationship and his progress toward being what you think you need or you want. So anyway, that's it. So that's a very important decision. There are a lot of positive relationships out there. We got to look at them and use them as a model. Most of them are our parents, and many other times there are other people that we admire, and we sometimes need to look at and sometimes have discussions with those individuals about why their relationship is successful and what do they do to stay together. The other thing is the challenges that you have in a relationship. When you're in a racist, sexist, and capitalistic society, it creates an enormous amount of pressure on you when you're the subject of the racist institutions and arrangements that affect your life with life-giving, life-saving needs and services, as well as the administration of social services such as justice, health, and education. And when you get disparities and inequities, it creates an enormous amount of stress and pressure on you to perform. Now, when you start looking at male-female relationships from the African standpoint, from the ancient African, now when we're in the contemporary aspect, because see, going back to that ancient, we had queens and goddesses. So there was a sacredness that we saw in each other. We had, as females and males, there weren't the degradation that you see and the demonization or the aspects of people acting outside their character. They knew who they were, where they were, and their purpose for building a life for eternity. And that's very crucial. Now today, we go into our relationships during the in America during the Holocaust of enslavement, whereas we were forced into breeding forms, forced into relationships with other for the purpose of what they would call breeding forms, as I said, and for the purposes of making conflict. Making Black people fight each other for entertainment, making Black people punish each other, doing all kinds of things that created a mistrust for each other, giving one favoritism in front of another, raping our women, having children by our women, bastardizing our children, breeding forms, whereas making sons lay down with their mother to have children, having daughters lay down with their father to have children, All of those things created an enormous amount of stress and frustration and mistrust that we had for each other. So it wasn't like it's well, we don't like each other because we're Black. It was a social dynamic that caused these conflicts all the way up through Reconstruction, as well as post sharecropping, and all of those things created a lot of stress on us. But as we got freer, we began to develop, we was in an agricultural dynamic. So our relationships became more dependent upon each other and more of a need. We needed relationships and stability. The more children you had, they were assets, they weren't liability. They weren't, they were your community. And that's how we built little Black towns and Black communities throughout this country, through reproductive processes. But at the same time, the man would go out and hunt and work, and the woman would have her role as the house. But it wasn't looked at as an exploitation of the woman. Her role was very vital for the stability and the growth and development of the family. And they saw each other. They were raised to get married. They were raised to love and respect each other. Even though some of them took on European characteristics of domestic violence and cultural conflicts, we're not going to say those things didn't happen. But the building of the first Black churches and the building of Black communities led to better relationships, especially during segregation and Black isolation, because we needed each other. We had Black businesses, everything was Black, 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 until whites come in and burn them or create problems. But anyway, that grew all the way up into almost the 30s and 40s and 50s, a dependency of relationship. Our education was not that strong we didn't go to schools. Our illiteracy was very weak. So therefore we based it on common sense and common knowledge. And we saw it as a relationship. Now, I'm not saying that there weren't contradictions where cats were, men and women were marrying young people, in their 13s and 14s, because life expectancy was short. You were lucky to get to 45 in the early 30s and the 20s and 40s. That was, 60, you was real old in those days. And so therefore people married young, and there was a dependency, for people to do those type of things. So the relationships were based upon a need. And one of the goals in the measure of your manhood and womanhood is, could you get married and could you have children? You understand? That was a goal. I mean, it wasn't a goal of sexual consumption, going to clubs and partying and just chasing men and women and sexuality that's freaking off and all that. It was a principled relationship of a need that's very important from that standpoint when we were socially isolated from the European. Now, this modernization of television had a profound effect on us, as well as automation and technology, because we left agriculture and we went into the industrial world, which we still needed each other up until the 60s and 70s. Then there was a breakup, not only caused by subliminal seduction by television, radio, and I Love Lucy, and the various shows that we used as a model to emulate, and it didn't fit us, but we used it. And then the influx of churches, moving from social institutions and service institutions to gospel for prosperity. 80% of the churches today are full of women. 80% of the churches are women. But the majority of the rulers of churches and ministers are men. So you have all these women in churches getting ideas about relationships and things of this nature and about life from a spiritual standpoint, which is good. There's nothing wrong with that. You know, for years, they wouldn't even let women in the pulpit in many of these churches, even though we have women that were ministers going back to Harriet Tubman and other women of that nature. But the point is that that had a profound effect on our male-female relationship because we used a Judeo-Christian dynamic. And many of it was sexist because it said the women shouldn't say nothing, honor and obey your man, and all of that type of stuff. And as women got more educated and more liberated, even though they may have went, a lot of them went to church, they still became empowered. But the point is, the system empowered them too, because there's so many dynamics that went into that male-female relationship. Now, some of the material when I say we don't study and we don't teach our children, and there's nothing in our curriculum, in our education, in public school, and very little in private school to deal with male-female relationships. We teach people to get along, but we don't teach them the value and the importance of a relationship, integrity, honesty, commitment, and stability. Now, you're looking at a person that as you get older, you gather that type of information. But when you're young, and I came up with Superfly and came up with Shaft and the Mac and Jim Brown and the Hammer and all of those type of influences, and they had a profound effect on us as young men, and not just me, the cats around. We dressed according to what the media suggested, from bell bottoms to bossa nova shirts to we put conch in our hair. We wanted straight hair. I mean, they had a profound effect on us, but it's also messed up our mind. Some of that conch and some of that Murray grease went to our brain, and we began to think and act like what we saw on television, as well as out in society. And many of the churches had left the gospel of Black experience and started teaching what, well, the dominant Eurocentric churches was teaching, and that's the gospel of prosperity. And at the same time, dealing with their concept of marriage and mating, and it created a lot of conflict. But anyway, let me just get to this. Dr. Karenga always argued, Dr. Maulana Karenga, the creator of Kwanzaa, he talked about 4 dynamics, and that we don't have real strong relationships. He called them connections: the cash connection, flesh connection, force connection, and dependency. The cash is money is the measure of everything, and people get involved with each other based upon money. And then the flesh connection is all about the mutual misuse and abuse of each other's body and other people's body. Sexual consumption, sexual desire is just a freak of the week show from the standpoint of flesh. How big is your butt? How big is your lips? How big is, are you a freak? And all that type of stuff. And then force. When some women stay in relationships because the guy say he'll kill her if he should leave. And father her or bully and as well as stalk. Just say, hey, look, I don't want no violence and things of this nature. It's imposition. And this also is a thing where in junior highs and high schools, they have young girls in lesbian gangs forcing other little girls. Even to this day, if you got to have family meetings to discuss with your children what are they going through, because they're so sexually exposed in the media. I mean, you can't, they're always talking about sexual harassment, but one of the biggest things is sexual arousement and mass media, sexual promotion. Soap operas, all of those type of things has a profound effect on our sexual value. Whereas one time we would say, we were so, as kids, we say, you doing the nasty, because we said it was wrong. Or to have sex at an early age. Ooh, mama, the little sister was doing the nasty with little boy and all that type of stuff. And so those things were part of it, as well as girls used to wear virgin pins. And that was an attribute. But now it's a whole new different game out there as far as sexual exposure for young people, that mass media is, and strangers, you learn from strangers about it instead of from family. I'm not saying some parents don't do it, but I'm saying the overwhelming majority get their ideas of relationships, sexual activity, openness. I mean, there was a time people say, I'm not gonna have sex until I get married. There was a basketball player that even said that. You say what, you haven't had one? No, I'll wait until I get
Professor
married.
Rahh.
Yeah,
That was AC Green. He came and visited us too at Long Beach State. AC Green.
that's right, AC. And so those are the connections of force, and then dependency. There's certain people, going back in the South, when we depended on each other, one of the things was to get married, and your manhood was to take care of a woman or take care of family. And women used to tell you, ain't no man, you ain't got no job. You ain't no man, you can't take care of me and my children. One of the things that was your measure of manhood was to get in position to raise a family and take care of a family. It created a lot of depression later on. Now, there were jobs available, but now there's no jobs. So that creates a lot of depression. Dr. LaFrancis Roger Rose, she was the one that talked about the creation versus criticism and the need to stop internalizing the negative aspects of male-female relationship and have a free, frank discussions. Like you living with something, people, they go into statistics of how many Black people being married more, and who's married outside the race and all of that. But really, it's deeper than that when you begin to look at statistics, because there are arrangements where people live together, but they're not a part of the statistics of marriage. They're, and so that's what she was talking about, internalizing negativism and not criticism, and not going through our own reality that there are a lot of people that live together, but they didn't get married. Some of our parents who we thought was married never got married. They just took on each other's names, but we never saw a marriage license. We never, you find out they just said we married. In those days, going deep in the South. But anyway, so Dr. LaFrancis Roger Rhodes, she's done. Robert Staples, he talked about the dating game, how expensive it is, and how some women just want, and men just want to date. They don't want to be serious. They don't want to be involved. He talked about how expensive that is, and taking people out, and the need for finances. And this is why some people are attracted to people with cars and people with money. Why? Because they can take them out and show them a good time, and those type of things. So Dr. Staples, and he also talked about the issue of standards. If you want a person that has never been arrested, then that leaves out a lot of Black men. If you want one who's just believing a devout Christian or religious, that leaves out a lot of Black men who don't go to church all the time, if you require that. And so that creates a shortage with regards to your needs. The other thing, so that's Dr. Robert Staples, who wrote a lot of books on the Black family, and he talked about the demasculinity of the Black man. He began to talk about how they were feminizing Black men through various ways and suggestions, and And his predictions seem to have come out if you watch TV today with regards to the various behaviors of Black men and not acting masculine, from that standpoint. Then Dr. Nathan and Julia Hare, they talk about the Black family and endangered species. And she would argue that what women want is a man with a BMW, and that means a Black working man, not a car, a man that works toward those values. But they said that the key to our success is rebuilding the Black family, and that we didn't have a pregnancy problem. We had a marriage problem. Black men were not trained and encouraged from home to get married. I mean, there was a saying that Nathan and Julia would say that we have to get that value back into the home. The primary educational institution is the home for personal character, values, and morals. And that we must begin to institute those things. I mean, and what I mean by that is that Black people used to have family meetings at dinner. Kids were seen but not heard. Youth could not even be in the same room with adults. And wisdom superseded all academic achievement. I don't care how many degrees you got. When you got home, mom and daddy was always respected and honored for their common sense. And remember, the first person that got that degree from someone that didn't have it. Now, the other thing is Shahrazad Ali, who dealt with male-female relations from an Islamic standpoint, and that's generally from a standpoint that, well, you couldn't even, women couldn't even divorce their husbands in some Islamic institutions, and women had to be separate from the men in the mosques, and women were just there to raise children and to be of service to the men. And Shahrazad Ali wrote that book from that perspective. Hakeem Mahdi Bouti said there's 4 choices that we have as Black people with male-female relationships. He said one is to do without, which is unnatural. The second is to deal with somebody else or import people outside the culture, like get people from Jamaica. Women could get people from Jamaica, things of this nature. The third is marry outside the race, somebody else, white, Latino, Hawaiian, some more Asian. And the fourth is homosexuality. And so, he said that tendency seemed to be taking hold. So Hakeem also took that position of the Black male from the standpoint of him being the most victimized person in the United States. And you look at the incarceration rate, and I was telling a brother earlier today about variants of the Black that affect Black people, social variants, social constructive variants that affect Black people. Incarceration, drugs, immigration, poverty, all these are variants. And you as a Black person try to get around these variants and find some type of immunity to them. And it's generally a combination of street sense and education strength to give you a balance where and at the same time, understanding racism and the effects it has on you politically, economically, socially, and educationally. So those are some of the dynamics of the, and as I said, that social science of mating is education. We must begin to study mating, study the family institution, and have an understanding of how we see a family. When you as a man have so many tattoos on and you fighting mirror space for your woman, you got more earrings on than she do. How you gonna tell your children not to do it when they go into school? If you was a female, if you wearing pajamas and sexual chauvinistic trying to act like your breasts are artifacts instead of for feeding children, that can create a problem for your daughters. And they always said, as Haki said, you love you love your sons, but raise your daughters. And so those are the dynamics that create those conflicts that we have. Male-female relationships, when young ladies, as I conclude, and we can ask questions, and I hope some of you have some questions, and I don't have all the answers, but you know, that's why I read off some of the books and the material that you could read. But the point is that the challenge that we have to realize that we got to get around racism, capitalism, and sexism. And we got to have views in which we see each other as sacred. No fighting, no arguing. I came up, I was in street gangs. I did all kinds of madness in high school and junior high. But as I studied, as people say, Black studies, as I did that, I had to change. As you get older, you get more emotional, more spiritual, and you get more wiser because you live through situations where you say, hey, this was a revelation that I'm still living today. And you begin to think God, nature, whatever you want to choose to think, luck, whatever it is, but you appreciate that getting old is not a burden, it's a privilege. But you have to share that knowledge you have with regards. So what I'm saying to young ladies in choosing a male, you have to have serious educational discussions, get to know them and their fathers and their mothers and family and their values before you make a commitment. And the same thing to the man, get to know each other. Dr. Frances Cress Welsing said that people shouldn't have children until they're 30. And that they shouldn't even start dating until they're in their 20s because they need to learn more and study more. She also argues, Frances was very serious about this with regards to the effect of racism on our male-female relationship. Now, you can get her book by Isis, and she talks about these things. The whole concept of the influence of Europeans on us has created a problem with regards to how we raise our children or don't raise them and let them raise them. Like Hakeem Mahdi said in Enemy Classes of the Races book, he said, you never send your kids to be educated by people that don't love them. We got wise mothers and people that have been married 50, 60 years. We got single mothers that have raised both boys and raised boys to be men and women to be women. And they did it by themselves. And but they got wisdom. We got to begin to harness that information. But many times, young people want to get their stuff off of TikTok, the internet, dating games. They even got dating sites and for older people and all that type of stuff. It's a lot of confusion out there. And what Black men have to learn is, and women, that you don't want to betray people that you love. When you double dipping with a male or female, all they want to know is the truth. If you got to lie to do it, then you shouldn't do it. If you're gonna be principled and say, look, I'm dating other people, I'm going out, I like you, okay, at least you told them. And at least they can balance if they want to stay involved or not. And there's no guess. And you keep reminding them, don't just tell them one time, say, I want you, I'm not into this. but you like me and I like you. We just want to have enjoyment. Be honest. That's what people want in a relationship, honesty. Second, they want commitment. Why live with me 10 years and don't get married? If you say marriage don't mean nothing, then do it. Because it do mean something. You understand? It's mean a commitment. It means a public proclamation. It means papers on each other. You understand? It means who's going to get what if you die and things of this nature. That's why they had those institutions. But anyway, so I'm here to answer any questions that any of you may have about specific issues, personal issues, experiences. I mean, yeah, you go out with one person and you like them and then you don't hear from them no more. They do a ghost on you.
Okay, Rahh. Rahh, that was awesome. That was awesome. I'm gonna go ahead and
Yes, it was.
I'm gonna go ahead and call on people. I'm gonna start with the ladies first. We're gonna do ladies first. We have do you pronounce your name Tonisha or Tanisha?
Yeah, it's Tanisha.
Okay, Tanisha. So we're gonna start with you. Do you have a question or comments for Professor Amara?
I don't really have a question. I just have kind of a comment about relationships, romantic relationships. Can you hear me?
Yes, hear you well.
Okay. I think that we focus too much on what the other person is doing and bringing to the relationship instead of ourselves. That's a big issue. We have the shoulds and coulds. That needs to stop. What someone is doing or should be doing is exactly what they are doing. Like you were saying earlier, you can't control anyone. And I think that coming into a relationship thinking that you can is what ruins it. I think that if you spend time dating one another and understand the dating game and how it works, that you'll get to know someone. They'll get to know you. And you won't have to waste that time trying to tell someone what they should and couldn't do. People need to be able to understand that when you are with someone romantically or you're interested in someone, you need to be able to accept them where they are and understand that people grow. You're going to do the same. People are going to change and grow over time. Is that person growing in the direction you want to go, or aren't they? If they are not doing that, then who are you to say this is the direction I need you to grow in for me? That's detrimental to a relationship. We need to learn that people change and evolve. There's evolution. It happens. I'm sorry. Okay, so stop getting stuck in one place. Intelligence is the ability to adapt to change. Okay, if we don't do that, we will die. That's what happens. Trees change, leaves fall, seasons change, everything changes, right? Now, I'm not saying that you get with someone and you say they profess to love you forever and y'all make y'all wedding vows. And I'm not saying that it's okay for them to change and I don't love you anymore and cheat on you. But if they communicate that to you and say, look, I've changed. I want something different in my life. Then the drama doesn't have to play out. It doesn't have to happen that way. Like you were saying, we don't have to pay attention to the negativity. If we focus and put a lot of our attention and energy on who we are, what we bring to the relationship, and what we want to create, that leaves really a minimal time for us to think about our partner and who they are and what they should and could be doing. If we spend a lot of time on focusing on us and exactly how we want to enrich our lives and enrich our relationship, you will meet the needs of yourself and your partner.
Yeah, but Tanisha,
yes,
everything changed. Sometimes it's changed for the good, and then sometimes they change for the bad. And people still stay together, hoping that they could go, bring that person back to where they were, and get them to change further. I agree with you
Well,
that
that's the
people.
misconception.
No,
That's the
but
misconception.
no, it's not. It's a reality. People
Well, no,
doing
I'm
that.
saying it's the reality that people do that in hopes that someone can change. You could, like you said earlier, you can hope for 10 years, but why stay in a 10-year relationship hoping someone will change? They are going to change whether they are with or without you. You do not determine whether someone changes or not. I guarantee you, you don't.
No, I agree with you that
So
people are what gotta want to change. I agree with you on that.
So what I'm saying is stop thinking that way. We got to change the way we think and view and our perception on relationships and people. You are not the reason someone is going to change. They have to decide to do that on their own. Now, are they that kind of person? If you date them and get to know them, then you'll know. Do they adapt easily? Do they change? Do they look at the moral of the story? What kind of person, what kind of characters, who are they? What kind of decisions do they make? You need to look and see what a person is in each and every, whatever goes on in life. Each every area. When they're broke, when they're happy, when they're sad, when they lose their way, that takes time. So if you are spending time with someone and you're getting to know them in that way, then you have the ability to say, I can do this or I can't. I like the way this person thinks. I like the way this person can adapt. We can grow together. You cannot do that in a short amount of time. That was my comment. Thank you.
All right, thanks for that. All right, we're gonna go to Sister Aziza. Sister Aziza, question or comment for Professor Amaral?
No, not today.
Okay, thanks. All right, Dr. Terry Strong. Dr. Terry Strong, there you go.
Yes, I do have, I was trying to get unmuted. I do
Okay.
have a comment and a question. One of the main components that I would add to the narrative is the feminist movement had a devastating effect on what true womanhood and motherhood should be about. That's just my humble opinion. Women were never meant to be equal to men in the sense of whatever they can do, I can do too. But my question is, from when you, as I was listening to you, the notion came up of the Stockholm syndrome. Is the Black race suffering from the Stockholm syndrome?
Eric Davis.
You've been the captive, and now you beginning to assimilate and agree with white culture. And the second part of that question is, if white people didn't exist, what would our Black community look like?
Probably like ancient African civilizations, prosperous, full of gold and prosperity. But let me just say this to you. See, it's not just the Stockholm. Oppression is a powerful thing too.
Yes.
I think Dr. Wade Nobles, a social scientist, as well as Dr. Karenga, said the most profound power anybody can have is to define reality for you and get you to accept their reality as your reality. Now, let me give you an example. There are more women graduating from college than men. Most men drop out, get a job. Then women will say, they're not looking for somebody to change. They're looking for somebody that could bring something to the table. So they say, hey, look, I want somebody that is equal to me as far as got a college degree or got at least a job already, not somebody that's working toward those things. Then there's the issue of, got a college degree. Can I date a man without a college degree, but he makes good money, or he's just a good person. And then what they would call that dynamic. I mean, what I'm saying to you is, from your standpoint, yes, the oppression make people do a lot of strange things. And you can call it Stockholm, you can call it what, or you can just call it racism. Racism is different from prejudice. We don't care if white people don't like us. It's their ability to affect our lives with in the administration of justice and social services in this society, as well
That's
as
right.
as well as our life-giving and life-saving apparatus and needs. And when they control that and create the disparities in that, and then they use social stratification for their own security. It's not an accident that the majority of Black people in prison are Black. The majority of people that suffer from various illnesses are Black. May it be diabetes, may it be amputees, may it be dialysis, may it be various forms of things. It's not an accident. A lot of it comes from the fact that we as a people were eating what they advertised, the biggest hamburger in the world, 3 pieces of meat, 18 pieces of bacon, and chili all over with, and I didn't want to know why we sick, because we go through that. But the point is that we as people have to be trained on how to develop healthy and strong families within this context, and that's what Dr. Francis Chris Roger Rhodes was talking about. Hey, listen, and you, Dr. Strong, you know that you got it in your text. You may be in the world, but don't be of the world. You don't want the world to change you. You want to change the world. You want the world to be like you when you feel empowered and things.
That's right.
And so when it comes to male-female relationship, yeah, you're looking for somebody compatible, somebody you enjoy, somebody funny, somebody human, somebody that really care for you, really care for the institution. And as Tanisha said, Ms. Hood, that yes, she's looking for someone that have the same values, shared experiences, and we hope that it has some longevity to it, and that they really enjoy being together. People that are been married long time, they're there because they want to be. And so they don't let little things break them up. They don't let big things become a problem. They solve them together, as Ms. Hood was saying. But the point is that right now, young ladies, the disproportionate amount of when you say 40 to 48% of Black women are not married, and that there's a lot, and of that 48% that are not married, 48 to 50% of them will not even be asked to be married. Then where's the Black men that are supposed to marry them? And then what do they do in the meantime for relationships? You see, so you have this obvious to be single. There are women out there that say, look, I'm just looking for somebody to give me a baby. They don't have to take care of it. I make enough money to take care of the baby. I'll do all that. I won't charge. You don't have to worry. I won't give you up for child support. I just want a baby.
That's a sad reality.
They do those type of things because they don't they want company. They want to have a child for whatever reason, natural inclination and things of this nature. Then there are men who say, hey, look, sister, I want my kid. You understand? If you want to go and just leave the children with me, and I'll take care of them. There are fathers out there that are good and strong fathers. All fathers aren't deadbeat daddies. And so there's a lot of dynamics that go into it. If you're a man and you say, I don't want no woman with children, then, that leaves out a lot of women who had children, and for whatever reason, the father's not involved. The man don't want to get involved because if the father's still living, and then at the same time, how old are the children? All that come into play. Then there's another dynamic about I mean, there's a lot of exploitation and standards we put on each other, whereas, sometimes it blocks a beautiful relationship, because just because a woman have children doesn't mean that there are liabilities. You don't see them as assets and as beautiful people and potentials. And then look at all the pro athletes that said somebody else raised them because their daddy wasn't there, or I was adopted, and things of this nature. That's pretty heavy. So the point is that male-female relationships takes, it's a lot of people grow into them, as Ms. Hood was saying. You may have started out just, hey, partying and partying. Then next thing you know, you're a happily married couple. You got all the partying out of you. You got children. You got all the things you used to do out of you. And you have a different value syndrome. But then there's certain people who thought they wanted to be married, thought they wanted to be with monogamous, and then, it ain't practical, because the women don't want to share men. They say, hey, it took me too long to get this one. I ain't giving up an inch of him. You're the share for anybody. And then there are other people, in other societies, they do have polygamy, and they do have polygyny and polynesia. All of those type of things that people did it for economic reasons, and life expectancy was short. So the brother may take on the wife of the widow of his brother, and move them in. But it's a family decision. It was a choice, and they have roles and things of this nature. But the point is that we as a people must realize the social stratification of our conditions under oppression, and then at the same time get into our cultural apparatus. You say you Black, what do you do Black? What is your philosophy that comes from the Black experience? What do you do that you can say you Black? Do you follow Marcus Garvey's ism? Are you a Garveyite? Do you follow the Nation of Islam? Do you follow various Black philosophies of value syndromes? And people be saying, I'm Black, and they just basing it on pigmentation and color, but psychologically, they somewhere else. You see what I mean? And those are the things. And you got Black men marrying outside their race, and even marrying the oppressor's daughter, and talking about they love her. Man, that don't even make sense. How you love somebody that enchained you for 100 years? And you can say, well, I ain't sending good white people and things of this nature. And if you want to marry them, you marry whoever you want to marry. But at the same time, you got to look at the reality of that history, and you got to make a political and cultural thing. If you're talking about building Black power and Black resources and Black assets, then you marry within your own race. But if you just saying, hey, I just want to be married from somebody I love, well, you might marry another man and a man. Yeah, that's somebody you love, but you got to have a purpose. What is your purpose? What is your cultural apparatus that you draw from? And if you're not into your culture, and the culture is the ritualization of your Blackness, of your Africanness, you ritualize it. And that means marrying inside the race. So you got to be focused and dealing with the issues that are caused by outside factors and getting around them. You went to college, you faced racism in public schools or even in the Black schools or 100 Black colleges. You understand? You face it. Most of them had 50, the majority of the philanthropists that keep the Black colleges going are white. That's why many of them couldn't even have, you can go to Black colleges right now, they don't have Black studies degrees. They were against Black student union. Well, anyway, my point is that racism is real. And if you don't discuss it and you don't educate your children how to get around it. Now, our parents used to say, we got to be 10 times smarter than the white person in order to make it. And so, but we have to think, and we have to learn from our history. You understand? And as I always say, don't use it as a reference, use it as a resource and draw from it. And that's the same thing with choosing a mate. Use your wisdom. Use your wisdom. I mean, you have friends that make a fool of themselves because they're lonely and because they, you know, just anything to do. And that's not how we're going to get ahead as a people. Our family institutions is the most quality thing that we have. Yes, you're going to have men that run off. Men have always ran off. That's why they have laws against it, and laws and cultural apparatus that deals with regulations of marriages and mating and things of this nature. And most of them came from religious institutions, but you also have to have your own agreements. Sit down and discuss these things, you know, not just discuss the Laker game or I ain't saying you shouldn't do that every now and then, but talk about realistic goals and aspirations if you're going to build a relationship.
I want to say something about that. A lot of times, I do listen to families. I counsel families. I'm a therapist, and they don't want to discuss those things. So my question to you is, how do we get Black men to buy into that? How do we get Black men to buy in to what you're saying about families and the value system? How do we get them to stop valuing certain things? Because it's evident that Black women are educating themselves, and we are starting to change and value ourselves in a different way. That's why we're going to school and trying to make, you know, our lives better and more enriched. But for some reason, I'm getting a lot of mental health issues with Black men. They don't want to address that. Mental health issues, childhood trauma. They don't want to address that. When I talk about it, it's a trigger. And then if I'm talking to you about your trauma, you start to get aggressive. I've triggered you in some kind of way, and therefore I'm challenging you. I get that a lot. So it's a lot to try to get past to date a Black man that we've all been oppressed. I get it, being Black, racism, prejudice, corporate. I get it, going through that. But at the same time, the last thing that we need to do is challenge each other at home. That's the last thing we need to do. I've been challenged all day out here in the world. When I get home, I'm not challenging you. I'm supporting you. So when I ask you questions, or when I talk to you about serious stuff, that don't mean shut down or get angry or lash out. That means we probably need to sit down and have a discussion about it and try to figure this thing out. I'm not getting that with our Black.
That's good. Okay, let him respond so we can get to some other people. I appreciate that.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, go ahead.
Okay, all right, that's fine.
The best cure to any problem is prevention. And you try to get terms of communication together before you get that deep in a relationship. The openness and the ability to discuss critical issues from a personal standpoint. Now, from a therapist standpoint, that's altogether different. You know, people just, you know, don't want to talk to the therapist or whatever, or mental illness. That's a whole new different thing. Family, you know, but you know, the family institution.
The reason I said mental illness is because of a lot of our Black men are suffering from it. And if we address the sickness that's going on in our community, we can heal ourselves.
Yeah, but the best cure, as I said, is you try to keep people from getting to mental illness. Once they get there, all you can do is either give them some type of medication and counseling and therapy and prayer. But the point is that, you know, when you're in a relationship, male-female relationship, you have to get your principles of communications and discussions together. Now, if the person don't want to talk about their family, don't want to introduce you to their mom and daddy, just want to close up and say, well, and you still choose to stay with them, they don't have the problem. You got the problem. You understand? Because you didn't put your position up and say, hey, look, I got to have a man or a woman that I can talk to and we can communicate to, and that we have an open communication. We got to have those, and you try to choose a mate that has those skills and is not inhibited from discussing issues that are critical to the maintenance and development of the relationship and keeping it going and even raising the children. I mean, those are things you talk about. Hey, man, how do you raise your children? I don't hit my children. Well, I believe in it. My daddy whipped me, I'm gonna whip my kid. Well, I mean, you got to get those terms together before you start having children if you don't want your man beating on your kids. You understand? Or your wife beating on the kid. Those are the things that you get together. And that's what the discussions is.
Okay, thanks. I want to get to Brother Hembrick. Brother Hembrick, are you there?
My brother. He's trying to unmute.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, I'm here.
All right. You got a comment or question for Professor Rahh?
I don't have any questions, just some comments. I read, dang, this always happens every time I come on your show, brother. But anyway, I really like the, getting back to, before we met this European that kind of got our minds all out of whack and whatnot. And I agree with Brother Rahh about that's what we need to get back to. But I've been doing a study in some books called the Metal Netter, and the way we think as African people, that left brain versus right brain, the individualistic side, which we're on, due to society we live in, compared to the collective one, that comes from my ancestors. And I think that has a lot to do with the way our relationships end up going. But I agree with Brother Rahh. You get into a relationship, you got to know that you know what you're getting into. Because you just don't marry them, you're marrying the whole family. And I tell people, you better make sure of what you're getting into, because all of this stuff is gonna come. Like, we look at this Markle woman now, went over here marrying this prince or whatever he is. But anyway, I don't see how she could have not known, what's to come, from, the thing that she did. But anyway, for myself personally, I've been married for like 33 years. And it wasn't all easy and peaches and cream. It takes compromise, but we went together, off and on for 8 years before we decided to do it. And it still was challenging. But I want to say this to all parents or people that got about to become parents. When those children come, your life is over from what you've known it to be. It's time for you to start doing some parenting and let a lot of that stuff that you've been doing go. If you want your kids having the best chance of, growing up right. And oftentimes, we haven't got those things out of us. We want to get married, we got kids, but we dropping them off somewhere and still going out and doing our thing. That kind of stuff needs to stop, because my daughter, she always wanted to go and spend the night at somebody else's house. I like, oh no, you ain't spending the night nowhere but right here, because I know what goes on here, but I don't know what goes on at other people's places. And anything can happen. A lot of abuses and stuff like that occur when you don't have your eyes on your kid. And another comment I want to make, which a lot of brothers and sisters have problems with, in the last 30 years, the sister, I don't know if you agree with it or not, but I know it's a fact, the sisters have been promoted over brothers as far as jobs and all of that. That was by design to just degrade the Black man even more and more, to break up the Black family, because the sister's gonna want somebody that's equal to her as far as, you know, income and so-called social status and whatnot. And I want to say this to all the sisters, and I tell them all the time, just because a brother doesn't have the economic thing that you want for your family and your household, a brother can give certain things to his kids that, you know, that you can't place a money value on. For example, I got a partner, got a real sharp daughter, and this guy, he's not doing well financially, but, you know, he's taking kids to book fairs, museums, these type of things, you know, giving the kids exposure to the world. But still, it came down to, you know, you ain't bringing enough money in this household. And I think that is a detriment to the relationship between, you know, Black men and Black women, because you can bring something other than something financially there. You can be out there working, he can cook, clean house, and all this, that kind of stuff. So you need to work it out. I know my mother, I was raised by a single mom, and she used to teach me all the things that women did, you know, cooking, sewing, ironing, cleaning house, and all that. And I used to complain, like, Mom, why you got me doing all this stuff? I'm doing the yard and all that. You got me doing this too? And she said, son, I'm teaching you this. So when you get with a woman and you ask them to do something and they don't want to do it, you can do it yourself. You know, and that's how we, you know, that's how I've been. And me and my wife today, is some things that men can do, like fixing stuff. She's great at that. I'm terrible at it. And I just do the things that I'm good at. So, you know, while you filling each other out, you know, you can kind of find out where a person's head is and what they feel and think, and then go, and then you can decide whether you want to continue on with that. But like I say, it's a constant struggle. And that's just the way married life is to me, and relationships are. But that was about it. But I still know that we are thinking with the wrong side of our brain, because the stuff that we're constantly bombarded with, you know, with what we get in this European value society, you know, the stories, I call some, oh, don't call me now, I'm looking at my stories, you know, and they all, and the brain is something, the brain is like a computer. Once it gets in there, it's hard to get it out. I mean, you know, you may not react to it or with it, but it's still in there. You know what I mean? And I think that's one of the big problems that we have as far as people and our relationships, is that, you know, we're operating in another person's system that wasn't designed for us. And the things that we've learned from them, you know, like Sister Chandra Ali says in her book, The Black Man's Guide to Understanding the Black Woman, and vice versa. You know, we've learned from this oppressor and carried that stuff on into our lives. Like once we, you know, weren't enslaved anymore and all this and that. And so I was looking at this movie and it had some profound stuff in it. Queen and Slim. I don't know if you guys have seen that. But anyway, when the brother and sister was running from the police trying to get away after killing the cop, and the sister was down at her uncle's house, and the sister was talking to one of the uncle's women and talking about her uncle, and she said something that was profound to me, and she said, out there in society, he may not be crap out there, but in here, we treat him like a king. And vice versa, you know, with the woman thing. You know, we don't treat each other well enough. And there's a lot of reasons why, but we need to work it out. You know, I may be a good cook and she may be a good shot, you know, but she can ride shotgun, you know, while I'm doing the cooking. You know, we got to figure things out so we can stay together, because without each other, we ain't going nowhere. I know that. And so You know, it needs to be a lot of discussion, whatnot. Some skills need to be shared with the people coming up. Like a lot of these young ladies, they don't know how to boil an egg. And there's some young men that don't even know how to wash a car. You know, but the elders that are around, they need to pass things along. And a lot of times the youngsters don't want to hear it, and they need to. And I love the scene on the movie Lean on Me, where it got the young boy on the roof telling him to jump off the roof. He says, one thing about you young people, you think you know everything, but you don't know crap. And but you know, the youngsters, the stuff that they're influenced by. Listen to all these people on the radios and all these rappers and gangsters who ain't never did no gangstering for real. They just rapping about it. They never did nothing in that regard. But like I say, we got work to do, and we need to get busy, because it's getting bleak, in my opinion. And you know, we just need to wake up first, find out who we are. That's big. Like I said the other week, know thyself. A lot of problems we have because we don't know. And so we need to share and try to wake up as many of our people as we can, get some skill development going. I try to get a program at Centennial, brother, you know, where you work. Every morning I used to come to work, I see the old brothers at the donut shop every morning. Ex-electricians, plumbers, cement people, roofers. And I tried to get a program where these brothers would come and mentor some of the young brothers at the school. But I couldn't get it past the principal. He was too busy chasing tail himself and wouldn't listen. But, you know, we have a lot of things to do to build a nation. And another thing we need to do is be able to defend ourselves. You know, until we can defend ourselves, a lot of this stuff we going through in the last couple of years was been going on for 3,000 years, really. But as far as our society in America, you know, all these cops shooting these brothers, man, it's just ridiculous. And I think a lot of the brothers that have been in the military that know how to get down need to be sharing. I ain't talking about the NFLAC, I forget the organization that's down in Georgia. They're supposed to be showing up everywhere Black people been shot and doing something. And I don't know, I think they arrested that brother and he kind of shut up for a while. But anyway, we got work to do, and that's all I got to say, and I'm willing to get to work. And I try to talk to them all the time when I get the opportunity. Some listen, some don't. But it's hard to listen and absorb stuff when you're trying to make it every day in this society. It's tough. So that's all I got to say.
All right, Brother Hendrick, thanks for that. And this is why we have this platform, and we're going to get younger people on here to start engaging with them also. This is the community right here. We taking them all in, young and old, and in the middle. Okay, Brother California, did you have a question for Professor Rahh or a comment?
Not at all. No.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Brother Doctor.
Oh yeah. I can just say, man, that Professor Rahh said a lot, man. Professor Rahh, Dr. Strong, and Tanisha Hembrick. I mean, you guys said all the issues, problems, solutions. The Stockholm syndrome. I kind of know that. Roxy and Tanisha. She said everything. I think everybody knows there's an issue, and I think kind of everybody's kind of afraid to kind of really say, what's really happening. I can go back to, something that you know, Rasaki, Haile Selassie speech. We're here, I'm listening to Professor Rahh and everybody. And you know how I am, you know how I think. You know, it's never going to change, man. You know, we're on their soil. Like how I should say, man.
Okay, brother doctor, you kind of
We're
cut out. You cut out on that.
this is just an illusion. Nothing's going to change, man. We're fighting this illusion. As long as we're on their soil, nothing's going to change, man. It's all good. The percentages are going to stay the same. We have all these choices, and it's always going to be like this, man. Like Professor Robin said, I'm older now. I'm wiser. I really said, oh man, if I knew this back then, yeah, it would be different, man. But you got younger people coming up with their ways and their thinking. And this is, everybody's just talking about life, man. This is life. This is how life is going to always be on American soil. As long as we have the dominant race dominating our culture, it's always going to be like this. We're never going to change. We're never.
Okay, well,
Just
well,
simple as that.
Well, what I can add to that, but
that's the
you're
fact.
not finished.
Okay. Change.
Well, what I can add to that.
No, go ahead. No, yeah. No,
what I can add to that what you say that it's never going to change. Well, I think that
as long as we're here on this soil and we're not in control, like Leslie said, until we topple that regime that's controlling this, it's never going to change. Like my brother Hembrick, like I tell people, he's talking about Jam Master Jay. I think that's his name, the brother that got all the guys together with them guns. Yeah, that's all fine. And Dr. Strong know this. Man, they got some stuff that no matter how many brothers we get in armed, we're not going to be able to topple them, man. They got stuff. And we just see it now here just with, we fight a new war. We're fighting biological wars now, man. You send somebody to one person, you can wipe out the neighborhood. But, until we leave these grounds, man, this soil, and get around 80% of, 99% of our people where life would change, it's never going to change, man. I mean, it's all good to think about it. And like I told you before on other shows, never give up, keep trying, keep preaching. You'll change a few, but you're not going to change all. You get a few, but you're not going to get that many. But then it's all good, man. It's all good. This is life. This is what we're here for. This is what show. This is life, man. We know we're facing. And, just have to deal with it, just like I said, the relationships. Man. You just deal with it, man. The stuff you got to deal with. And I always want to say one last thing. So like this guy always told me when I first got my job, he said, hey, you think you got this job because, hey, you went in, you got your degree. You went in and filled out an application, you passed the interview. That's why you think you got that job. You really think that's why you got that job, because you met those requirements, and you have to think about that, man. The society we live in, that's, you think you got that job because you put in that application. Okay, man.
All right. Well, I'm gonna add to that just a little bit, brother doctor. In the scheme of things, a person, I've been through reforming transformation, and if I could change, anybody can change. That's the philosophy that I got to take. And then we have each one teach one. And you're just going to have to do the work that you could do to affect change. So I'm going to leave it right there. Okay, Brother Mashinda, you the last one.
Yes, sir. How you doing?
Okay, and yourself.
I'm good. No, I'm just all ears listening, and I think everybody made great points. Dr. Rahh, great presentation. Good to see Sister Dr. Strong, and but you know, I'm going. I guess it's not so much agreement, but I'm going along the lines of what Brother Doctor was talking about. You know, he gets that that name of the antagonistic one, but I think he's a realist. He's just trying to make his point. He don't need my endorsement or anything, but I'm just kind of bowing my head. Shaking my head in a affirmative, and it's just based on, and this is to Dr. Rahh. I've heard a grim diagnosis. It's kind of like a person going to the hospital and they get a diagnosis is like it seems pretty catastrophic. So I just want to know what is your prognosis on this total situation. I was listening to Sister Tanisha, and the therapist, and she was discussing how the men come in and they can't open up, and I don't know if it's a lack of communication skills at times, because a lot of brothers can communicate, but even myself, some things we keep to our chest. We know when to hold and when to hold, when to fold. We have our own strategy as we matriculate through this life. We don't show our whole hand. It's just the way it is. I guess it's a survival skill set that we acquire. Not a right or wrong. It is what it is. But these young males that we're talking, just saying young male that's growing up without a positive or a model of relationship on how it should be. He can have a tough time as he matriculates through life, and then what all the outside influences that he's confronted with develops this mindset. And so back to the prognosis, this all-out assault on people in general, let alone but speaking specifically the African brother, in the whole diaspora, it's like, okay, we're still standing, and we're we're on this podcast tonight, strong brothers and sisters having a great conversation, and I'm sure in our own right. And I know Doc, you and all the other ones, everybody else, Brother Hembrick, Doctor, and Rasaki, and everybody else has put their best foot forward and trying to make change. And I know we have to remain hopeful and positive, and no matter what the score is, the game is still going on. And Brother Rasaki will tell you, when we were young, playing basketball in the dark, we competing against neighborhood folks. We played to the end. You keep playing. You play to win. And I'm using a sports analogy, but it's real. It's the game is not over. So, but I just want to honest, like it's kind of the state of the state of Black America. The state of the African situation. What's the prognosis with all these assaults, this continuous assault on our every front, the fronts that Dr. Welsing talks about, and Neely Fuller, and and John Henry Clark, and Dr. Yuckanon, the ones, that they've been talking about it, they passed it on to us. You're well versed at it, and you're putting it out there, which I appreciate, because when you speak, like I say, I write down some of these names. I'm familiar with a lot of the names, Brother Hembrick, and you guys bring up, and we got to continue to kind of research to open up our spirits, open up our souls, and until we digest, the truth, then it's kind of the battle's always going to be uphill. It's not going to be leveled, So again, I'm not going to take over. I'm just sharing my thoughts. But Dr. Rahh, what's I know you've been around a while. I know you're still a youngster, but tell me the prognosis. What's your most honest opinion about where we're at with this?
All right, I'll try to go over them again. I thought I mentioned them when I was talking. One is that I said that, we got to educate our young people, but there's a challenge in that because a lot of them don't live with their biological families. But those that do, family institutions teaching them to love, respect, and see each other as sacred, not to teach them to, correct them with regards to popular culture and get them into their Afrocentric culture and see each other as sacred. Challenging them as far as values and ethics. Those are things that we must teach. Our destiny is in our hands. It's not in the oppressor. The oppressor can't be our teacher. And so therefore we must teach our children how we want them to be instead of letting society teach them on how they want them to be. They can't choose our leaders or they can't choose our entertainment. They can't give Grammys to Lil Wayne and Snoop and say, this is your music and these are your top artists and promote them on TV and subliminally seduce our children into gang activity, misogynism, and all kind of violence. We have to teach them and discourage them and teach them how we want them to be. Like I said, you be in the world, as Dr. Strong knows, but don't be of the world. You want the world to change. Like him and Oliver said, when he said he wouldn't let his daughters stay all night. Nah, me and Joe, we real close, but he don't know. I do the same thing. I don't believe in no spending the night. You understand? Nowhere for my kids. You understand? I mean, that's just me. You understand? No pajama parties, none of that. You understand? And if they do, they're gonna be at my house, and I'm gonna watch them. You see? So those things, values and ethics. I said get an Afrocentric philosophy. You understand so that the oppressor's philosophy and oppression don't affect you. Once you know who you are and where you are, and your defense against the racism, that's what Dr. Francis Cress Wellstein and Neely Fuller, when they tell you about racism, they also give you solutions of what you have to do. So my solutions is the same recommendation as theirs. Don't let the oppressor oppress you mentally and spiritually. No drugs, no alcohol. You understand? At all, none, not even in the refrigerator. You understand? My kids came up in my house with no smoked cigarettes, no drinking,
That's right.
None of that. You understand? I had to be an example. Now, when I was coming up, I was wow. You understand? I was at the parties, I was in the baby Romans, the oils, all that. But I knew when I became a father, how I wanted my daughters and my men to think. And they all got master's degree. I've been married to my wife over 40 years. Why? Because I want to be. Like Joe said, it ain't always peaches and roses, but we don't argue, we don't fight, we never cuss each other out. We've never done none of those things because why? We had an African wedding where you get your values together before then. We went together and got to know each other. I got to meet her mother, father, brothers, and sisters. She met mine. We knew our families and everything. But when we first met, we was partying. Me and my wife was at the after hour joints and we was doing everything. But once we got married and decided to be with each other totally, as Joe said, you give up all that. Second, I said education, I said culture, I said teaching them about racism. How many parents do you think, and how many foster parents and guardians are talking about race and not prejudice, not white folks not liking you? I'm talking about what they're gonna have to face in life. It's not the test, as Joe and and Rasaki knows, it's the test, can you make it in life? And that's what Joe was saying. There's brothers out there that don't have no degrees, but they're good people. And they got skills as far as making a man, and a woman. And they do have enough sense to get a job, or they have some source of income and beat the system. And you shouldn't mark them off because they don't have a white man degree. And that's why I said the first person that got a degree got it from someone that didn't have it. So that means that somebody with common sense have it. Now, I only think, and and then I said that you have to be a mindset of sexism, racism, and capitalism. All of those are educational tools. Now, when it comes to change, we all have changed. We used to be babies. Look at us now. Change is an evolutionary process. You have no choice. If we weren't going to get out of slavery, I mean, to say that nothing changed, we'd still be in slavery. If we say the white man, he's just so big and so bad, ain't nothing we can do. Oh no, I'm a fighter. I ain't never giving up. You understand? I work with young people and I teach them just like y'all teach them. And you're optimistic. You can't talk fatalistic. You can't say, oh, ain't nothing we can do. And the system is so dominant and they fight and they got all the weapons. Hades overthrew them. Nat Turner went down boxing. Harriet Tubman said when she got her freedom, she went back and got other people. It wasn't about an individual thing, it's about a collective thing. So I'm optimistic that things will work out. There's always an evolution of change. Those that are last will be first, and those that are first will be last. To say there ain't no change, well, tell the people in Georgia that flipped a blue state to a red state to a blue state. Tell the people in Arizona that flipped a red state to a blue state. That's why you're getting a stimulus check. You understand? To say ain't no change, then don't take the check. It's a trick. It's a trick. The check is a trick. They're just trying to seduce us. No, there is change. There's always change. The weather changed. The trees change. The weather, man, the clock changed. Next week we got to put the clock back into California. Some states you don't, but there is always change. And as Rashaki said, he changed. Now, if you don't change, that's on you. But in order to get along with people, you have to be able to adapt and change and see things from the other people that you're dealing with. Sit down with your kids and talk to them. I have regular family meetings, regular. We sit down, how you doing? What's going on? It started when they was in elementary school. Anybody messing with you at school, you tell me, don't you try to handle. No fighting in school. Now, I got suspended almost every day. You understand? But I made sure my kids didn't do what I did. Because why? I changed. Because I saw too many of my partners that didn't change die early and go to prison and do all kinds of things that they shouldn't have done.
Well, we're going to leave it there. We're going to leave it there because this is another 2-hour show, which is fine with me. And hey, we got to keep pushing. We got to get young people on here. We want to see what they're thinking. We want to give them some knowledge and, let them grow in this environment. We got to create the environment that we want. And this is definitely one of those environments that I definitely want. And I just appreciate Professor Rahh being consistent and coming. And I think he's still there, Rahh. So it's a good thing. Dr. Strong was here. We had Miss Tanisha Hood is here. And we have the regulars, Joe Hembrick, Brother Doctor, Brother California Messenger, and Sister Aziza. As a matter of fact, Sister Aziza is next week, and the topic's going to be blue collar Black woman. So that should be interesting. And we just going to keep doing what we're doing, and we're going to reach out to the youth. That's one of my things. I need to get some youth on here and start tapping their brains, seeing where their brains is, and so we can start introducing some of this information to them that's life-saving, in my opinion. So, hey, if we just gonna end it, it's been real. Professor
Okay,
Amon Ra.
I would like to give a shout out. Thank you all for having me. And I also wanted to name my company, which is Symphony Mental Health Services.com.
Okay.
If you know anyone that needs any type of mental health services, please give them that address, and I can do it virtually. You know, we are approved on every platform to provide mental health services now. So no matter where I'm located, anywhere in the world, I can provide mental health services over the phone or an iPad or whatever.
Okay, Miss Hood, can you please just email me through the website?
Yeah,
And I will, yeah,
absolutely.
because I can get your information and post it on the website under recommendations.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Thanks for coming, and come back, please.
Absolutely.
Okay. So everybody, each one teach one, and have a good evening.
What's up?
Yeah.